include the Proposition 1 certification bond and the canvas of results for that bond. Very good. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, very good. Then let's go ahead and get started on this. We will do a certification of the 2022 Cache County general election first.
Madam Chair, I have brought with me my staff, and they are actually going to present and answer any questions that you have. I mean, basically, it's if you have any questions.
Okay. If you'll introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are. Appreciate it.
My name is William Chris. I'm the elections coordinator for Cache County. I brought with me our finalized election results. We finalized our election this morning. We released the official results, and I brought that with me here today. If you would, could you pass this down? I've also brought, so we'll go over the documents I have provided in front of you, just in order of what they are. The first document you'll see is in the top right corner, it's our election summary report. This is just a simpler version of each of our results for each of our races here in Cache County. Followed by that document, I have a statistics report. This one goes in depth on what our ballots, how many ballots we sent out, how many challenges to those ballot signatures we had, and more specific results of what was counted, what was not counted. We can go over that. Following that page, we have an audit summary report. Yesterday, on the 21st, we did a audit of our election that the Lieutenant Governor requires in each county in the state. The requirements for that audit are listed on that paper. We're basically required to audit, I believe it's 1% of our ballots. And for that, we had roughly 600 ballots that we're required to audit. So we pulled the physical copy of the ballot, we reviewed the digital image of that ballot, and then we looked at the cast vote record for each individual ballot to verify that the physical ballot matched what was recorded in our system and make sure each of those votes was cast correctly. And then the second part of that audit was to make sure that the signatures we approved for each of our 600 or so envelopes part of the audit, that those signatures were correctly handled, that the voter registrations for each one of those records that we were required to audit was also correct, and that we passed on all of those requirements. So just going back over to that election summary report, this is just the brief explanation of all of the results for the county. Each of the races will list how the votes were tallied. Some questions that might come up are what's considered an overvote versus an undervote. I've answered this question for some of our council members, but just to reiterate is if a voter selected multiple candidates for a singular race, that is what we consider an overvote. We do what's called an adjudication process for these ballots, where we as a team of our 2 staff members will go and review each one of these ballots that's considered for this category. So if on a ballot you voted for 2 people in your Senate race, we as a team of 2 staff members are required to review that ballot to see maybe there was a mistake made, maybe you crossed out one of your selections and circled another, and that process is called adjudication, where we can use voter intent law to say their intent was clear enough that they circled the candidate they did want to vote for and crossed off the candidate they did not want to vote for. What remains at the end of the election are these ballots that the voter clearly voted for 2 candidates, whereas we're not able to count that specific race. We're able to count the rest of the races on their ballot if they chose to fill it out, but for a specific race, so in our Senate race, we had 9 overvotes, and that's just where the candidate or the voter filled out 2 responses for 2 different candidates. Undervotes, you'll see on this paper, that's where the voter chose no candidates for that race. They skipped that race. It's pretty common in our midterms, our presidentials, where voters will get their ballots and they just want to vote on the Senate, they just want to vote on their House. Maybe they'll vote on the countywide issues, but they tend to skip a few of the other races. So you'll see on a lot of these races, the undervotes are where the voter chose not to vote on the race at all. I think that most of it goes over any questions with the summary. summary report. Do you have any questions for me about that document?
William, can I just ask you one question on that? When you look at it, say the state treasurer, right, we got, Marlo Oaks got 80% of the vote, for the votes that were cast in that race, but he didn't really quite get 80%, right? Because there were, 10% of that almost was undervotes.
Correct.
So how come we don't talk about what percentage of the total ballots versus, I mean, is there a way to highlight that it's just?
Yes, it's mostly just so we're clear, I mean, as far as the race goes, those undervotes don't play into the race, but we wanna make sure that, we have those total votes cast, that 42,433, and we wanna make sure we include those undervotes, into that record to be clear that, we didn't skip those races, that the voter clearly said they did not want to choose a candidate. It doesn't play into that total of what percentage. You could look at the percentage of how many ballots were cast and then figure out the percentage from there, but we want to specifically look at, of votes cast on that race, he got 80% in Cache County, if that makes sense.
Okay. So those generally, on almost all these races, those percentages are gonna be overstated.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for that summary report?
Is that for this report?
Yes.
Yeah, the question I had was, and maybe this is what it is on the front, but like it says absentee, and then it has total, and they're different. So is the absentee, the mail ballot, and the total would include those that voted at the event center on election day in
Correct.
person?
So
Okay.
our absentee are voters who voted early and by mail, so they filled out their by mail ballot. And then election day are specifically our voters who visited our vote center in person and received a ballot from us that day. That wouldn't count like if you had filled in your mail-in ballot and dropped it off on election day. That's specifically those who came in and were processed on election day, and that also includes our provisional voters. So those who had to register that day, those who came in person to get a ballot because they might have moved or didn't receive it in the mail, those are specifically who our election day voters are. And then I passed this giant document around the room. That's our precinct summary, or our statement of votes cast. It's kind of an interchangeable term. That one goes precinct by precinct, how the votes were tallied. I only made one of them because it's 90 pages long. And I think I might save a little bit of paper, but go ahead and take a look at that. It's just summary by precinct. And then just our audit summary is the last portion of that. Just a clarification of what ballots, what races were audited on each ballot, and what process we did for those. Question.
Well, this isn't a question, but it's more of a comment. As you know, that as members of the Board of Canvassers, we can go in and look at anything beforehand and review all the records according to state law. So the Board of Canvassers has that opportunity. And I just want to thank William. I was able to spend some time with him last week. He was very open, very transparent, walked me through the whole process. We did a little kind of spot audit on a few things. And with all this going on, I know probably all of the council members have received communications. People have been concerned with elections for a long time. But I am as confident as I can be in this election. William and Bryson, thank you for what you've done and your work here. I appreciate it. I'm confident and I'm happy to be able to be here to certify this vote.
Thank you, Paul, and I totally agree. I went in and visited with William yesterday. It was, like you said, quite transparent with everything, and I have confidence in what we've got also.
Yeah, we appreciate our council members getting involved in the process and getting a chance to see how we get this election done. It's an ordeal. It's definitely a task that, people always ask, William, what are you doing in between elections? I'm preparing for the next one. So we appreciate when our council members get involved and want to see the process.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for
I
William?
wondered if you could go over this sheet.
What sheet is that?
Oh, yes. Sorry,
General
yeah.
election statistics.
So our election statistics page, thank you. So I'll just go, one question that usually comes up is, why are our by-mail ballots sent doesn't match our active registered voters? That's always a question that usually comes up. I think in every county, that number is never going to match exactly. The reason for that being is, first, we have a registration deadline. So some voters may have registered and were able to be mailed a by-mail ballot. Also included that is, we might have active registered voters who have chosen not to have a ballot mailed to them. We might have active registered voters who are not eligible for this election. So technically, you're allowed to register to vote at 16 when you get your driver's license. It's part of the process, but they're not technically eligible until they turn 18. So those numbers don't always match. And then the second part of that is, our voters end up moving during the election. They don't really cancel their lives for the election. So some voters will be mailed a second ballot. Obviously, their first ballot wouldn't be able to be turned back into us, but sometimes voters will move, they'll update their address, and we'll send them a second ballot. So that by-mail ballot sent won't always match our registered voters. We had 1,169 ballots that were not accepted. Those first two categories, called returned unsigned and signature did not match the voter record, those are what we call challenges. So on our first pass of signature verification, we compare the signature on the voter's record versus what they wrote on their envelope. And if what we're comparing those two against does not match, the voter will receive a did not match the voter record challenge status. And if they did not sign their envelope, they'll get an unsigned status. We do a second review where we go back through that voter registration. We maintain the last 5 signatures, 5 documents that the voter has turned into us. So let's say you went to the DMV recently and did a quick scribble on the pad. That's what I'm probably going to compare your envelope to. But if I have that chance to go back and review your voter record, I might see, oh, it looks like they turned in a registration document a few years ago, and that one matches the envelope they turned in. So we're able to approve it. These voters were the ones that we did a second review on. We reviewed their voter record, still were not able to find a signature that matched, and we were legally required to contact the voter and say, hey, your signature did not match for this election. You need to email us a form, go through our text-secure system through the state to help reconcile your signature, and then we can get your vote approved.
In that contact, were any of them come back as fraudulent?
No, so that's a great question. Part of that contact is the voter, if they do respond to us, part of that contact is that they're verifying, yes, I was the one who mailed that ballot in, and no one that we've had respond so far. The cutoff was this most previous Friday to return that document, but none of the voters who have returned that document have indicated that they were not the person to send their ballot in. Continuing down, we had 34 that were returned from a previous election. Unfortunately, our envelopes are similar to the ones we sent out in the primary, so some voters might find their old ballot envelope from the primary on their counter, realize there's an election going on, and send that one into us. Unfortunately, that election's not happening anymore. We're not able to count those ones. Some voters, I'm not sure, may not feel comfortable with the envelope and choose to just drop their ballot in our drop boxes. We can't count those. We're not able to confirm the identity or the residence of the voter if they just give us their ballot. So 15 of those were just a ballot that was dropped in our box that we're not able to count. And then we had 623 so far that were returned to us through the post office. So we lock our drop boxes at 8 p.m. on election night, and then we return to the post office, up until today to see if there were any ballots that were postmarked the day before election day. As long as they were postmarked the day before election day, we're still able to receive those and process them. But we still do receive voters who turn their ballot in with that postmark election day or past. And so far, we've had 623 that were turned into us that were not postmarked correctly. We had 2,274 voters on election day. I was surprised with the turnout. I don't know if any of you were able to see our vote center on election day. We had a decent line. Some people are worried that they have to wait 20 or 30 minutes to vote. I'm always happy I'm happy to have a line. I want people there in person. I want people to have the chance to vote. I'd say half of those people, 1,000, just above 1,000 of those people were provisional voters. So the majority of those are generally voters who did not receive a ballot in the mail. They've moved, they're registering for the first time. So those vote centers on election day, they're for the people who may not feel comfortable voting by mail, but more importantly, they're for those voters who didn't get it in the mail because they moved, they are registering for the first time. It was really exciting. We had a group of people come in who had just become U.S. citizens, and this was their first time voting. It's so exciting. Of those 1,134, we had 118 we could not accept because the voters did not include enough verifying information on them. Address was incorrect. They did not provide a driver's license number or a social, so we weren't able to approve those. But of the 1,134, we were able to approve 1,016. Continuing down, we had 183 ballots that we had to replicate. So I've talked about this process with a couple council members, but if a ballot is damaged, we recreate it, maintaining the original ballot, and we keep a control number on each so that we can make sure that we're not just creating ballots willy-nilly. We have a control number and a control group that we can refer back to if we need to.
William, didn't you tell me that 2 people have to?
Yes, yeah, a team of 2 people, yeah, thank you. We have a team of 2 people that recreate these ballots to make sure every ballot is scanned in the same manner. That way we can have our results all come from one singular place. And then just the bottom, I know one of our requirements is that we list how many people voted in favor and against the bond. That's listed on this document as well. And then just how many ballots we counted on or before Election Day and then after Election Day. We had a lot of people who dropped it in the drop box on Election Day, a lot of people who dropped it in our drop boxes at the vote center on Election Day. So most people think Election Day, 8 p.m., we're done, we got the results. There's a lot of work that happens that night after 8 p.m. and the following week. So we were very excited to be done with that.
William, on the provisional ballots where it says that they didn't have complete information, what kind of information were they missing?
Right, so they did not include, so to be able to register in Utah, especially on Election Day, so on Election Day, there are requirements to be registered as a new registrant. You have to provide proof of identity, so a government-issued photo ID, and then proof of residency. So let's say you have a driver's license with your current address on it, that would be proof of residency. But a lot of our voters will use a lease document, a bank statement, some verifiable piece of documentation to prove they're a resident. The other part to that is that they have to give us a driver's license number or the last 4 of their social, and then a date of birth and a location of birth, so we can verify all that information with the Social Security office or the driver's license office. So generally that 117 they were missing those key parts of their information, so we couldn't verify and count their ballot.
Thank you.
Any other questions I can?
Other questions or comments for William?
I just want your, I guess, an opinion.
Sure.
You've got an opinion. That'll be a good one, isn't it?
No, opinion about what?
I really put him on the spot, Dave.
You know, it seems to me like the vote counting is, instead of concise and to the point, it seems like it's being extended and extended and extended. You know, it just seems like forever. Is the vote by mail doing that?
I think if we did not vote by mail this election, we might still be in that processing center right now. The vote by mail allows us, if we had 43,000 people show up on Election Day, that would have been, I don't think the county would have been able to handle that many people. So having that opportunity to have vote by mail, it gives the voter a chance to understand what's on their ballot, fill it out correctly, but also the best part is we have those 3 weeks, so we send our ballots out 3 weeks before the election. That means as soon as that ballot gets returned to us, we can process it. In some of our other states, they aren't allowed to start processing until Election Day.
And so do you start that process? As soon as you
Yes.
start getting-
As soon as we have our logic and accuracy test before the election, where we verify that our machines are up to code and processing correctly, we're allowed to start scanning and counting ballots.
State does that.
Yes. So I think if we weren't able to start as soon as we did, if we didn't do vote by mail, we wouldn't get results as fast as we do in the state.
To speed that process up, what would be your answer?
More staff, more machines.
That's it?
Yeah. Otherwise, I think.
Is that necessary, you think?
I think a lot of people expect those results to be available and done at 8 p.m. on Election Day. But with vote by mail, we need those 2 weeks after the election to make sure everyone who got mailed a ballot has a chance, especially because we mailed ballots to our military and overseas voters. We're required to do a 2-week canvass period to make sure they get the opportunity also to have their ballot mailed back. I think we got one earlier this week from South Korea, some of our voters who are stationed military and stationed there. So we do that. We have that long period to make sure, all of our voters here in Utah and wherever they may be across the world have that opportunity.
Okay, then I'm gonna ask one more question. What would you change
Um,
to make it better? What would you change?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty happy. I think if I had a faster computer to tally all write-in votes, that would have made my life a little bit easier. But, I'm pretty happy with it.
Appreciate that. I appreciate it. When I popped in
Yeah.
few times, and I didn't see any, like they're running, but I thought it looked like things are methodically happening, step by step, and seemed pretty calm. So,
We did have a major candidate that was a write-in candidate this year. I see that votes were counted, but there was 400 that got kicked out. What was usually the reasoning why they got kicked out? You had to identify that there was a write-in ballot.
Correct.
I would identify that it was a write-in ballot. There was only one person that was writing in. I'm wondering why we kicked him out.
So do you mean?
William and I looked at almost all 499. I'll just let you know, Dave Erickson got a few right-in.
Yes.
Did he?
Yeah, so did Santa Claus and Mickey Mouse and,
Mickey Mouse, yeah.
hey, I've got friends. No,
the folks
Mickey
that
Mouse and
the
Santa
folks
Claus.
that he comports with. So I think there were 469, I think, when we were talking, right, or 63. It was just, they could write in anybody, and
They
they
wanted,
wrote
yeah.
in a whole bunch of names.
I saw,
People,
Write your name in? Was you-
I did not get one vote.
Is Dave the only one on the council?
Yeah, I
that
think
voted?
so. So the rest of us have
I
some
didn't
work
know
to
he
do.
even campaigned. Did he do a pretty good
I don't know,
I'm
but
no
he's,
good at campaigning.
yeah,
I'm just glad nobody wrote me in.
all right. Anything else for William?
Me off.
no, I'm good.
Thank you, William.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate your report, and thank you for your hard work. All right. Any of the other staff have anything they wanted to add?
Just thanks for your support. It means a lot.
Well, thank you. Okay. All right, then.
Another question to go along with that write-in deal. Was that probably the very most efficient way to do a write-in, is the way it was done? Or would you change something?
We use the software that our vendor uses. I know they have updates to their software that will coming out. I know definitely if there was another write-in race that we had to deal with, it would be much faster. But the issue is just when we're doing each of those write-ins, I have to review each ballot individually to make sure I'm giving credit to the correct write-in. Luckily, there was only one write-in candidate for our race, but we have to verify each one individually. So when the computer processes it, it has to create or find the image for that ballot that we scanned and then create a little snippet of the write-in race. So it takes a very long time to process that. And then we have to individually go through and say, that's a vote for this write-in, that's a vote for this write-in. I think in the future it would go by much faster, but I think it is the best way. Our machines make it so much faster than if we had to hand count. I can't imagine having to do that and keeping an accurate result. So in the future, I think when they update their software for that, it'll be much faster. But I think with what we have, what was available to us, it's as fast as it could have gone.
You would have had to have hand counted every one of those write-in ballots from what you're saying.
Yes.
That was, I mean, there was, I think I saw 10,000 that was counted.
Yeah, I think I don't have my paper, it was more than 10,000 near the end, so it was definitely time consuming, but, I think it was done in the most efficient way possible.
We used to do it at school elections that only
Of
take a
course we
half
did.
hour.
It wouldn't take us long. Yeah, I think these guys are, we might could teach them something, couldn't we?
They did.
Touche.
I did.
I was thinking that probably what was having to happen, that the computer would identify it and kick it out, and then it had to be gone through manually, and of course, that's really meticulous and slow,
And even that has a series of steps. Mm-hmm. I understand, so.
well,
All right.
like I echo everyone else, you guys did an excellent job, and attaboy. Yep.
All right, then.
She helped too.
Atta girl.
If you registered, she processed.
All right, then.
So did Jess do anything, or did he was he in charge of treats? Is that what he was in charge of?
He just made sure to stay out of the way so it can all get done.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
The building's secure, you feel all comfortable with that? Anything that comes in, four-legged, two-legged, whatever it may be?
No legged.
No-legged, whatever comes in, it's,
Yeah.
okay.
Actually, I have a question on that. You guys keep a record of who goes in and out electronically, or is it just only a few people can have access to that, know the key code?
Only a few people. So there's only three of us that know that.
And it's all
I smell pizza, I smell chili out there, so we
Videoed.
better get
Thank heavens for video.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of it.
So there's people that can watch it like on TV?
Yeah.
Well,
it's
that's
me who's
excitement.
watching.
That's exciting. That's,
Every once in a while, I like to scare them.
All right, council.
I think that's,
Yeah,
Do we need a motion to accept the,
I think we do.
let Gina make it, she's the one that can say the right words at the right places.
I don't have the agenda. Let me see the
Oh,
agenda.
sorry.
Would you like me to make a double motion?
Yes.
Okay, I will move to certify the 2022 Cache County general election and Proposition 1 as ballot measure as well. Does that sound official enough?
Thank you.
now, do we have to make that subject to any possible late ballots that still may come in because of, like you say, stationed in
Korea?
No, it's finalized now, yeah, we're good.
So their vote doesn't count?
Correct.
That's, poor guy, you better get off
No,
the
it
island.
worked pretty well. I'll second
I
Gina's
just wanna make
motion.
sure if there was some, a couple more, a few suitcases that were found in Atlanta, Georgia or something,
Maybe there's still some under the table they didn't see.
Could be, no.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the certification of the 2022 Cache County general election and also Proposition 1. Before I ask for a vote on that, I don't know if you were aware, but on that Proposition 1, on the statement on page, on the open space, on page 2,
I saw that too.
it says $25 million. Yet on page 3, it says 20 million. I contacted,
Yeah, that's my bad.
okay,
Yeah, I just mixed up the two. I have a 20 million and a 25.
okay.
I mixed it up. So there's
Okay, but the statement that we're approving, I contacted Jess, legal has corrected that, so we do have the correct one on file.
20 million.
The 20 million,
It
correct.
goes clear back to, remember when they came to present
Yes.
us, it kind of went back and forth and it was just the wrong
It was just the wrong
You have a person
amount
who
written on
types that stutters.
there. Okay,
Do we need to amend the motion to be clear that it's?
probably ought to do that, yes,
Proposition 1, bond for $20 million.
correct. Okay.
Oh,
We,
wait, Barbara, I mean.
yes,
This doesn't change anything, but I
Okay.
think it's important to note, those milkshakes got more expensive, because now they're showing us $31.78 a month, not the 20-something they were saying it was, so I just wanted to note that.
Is that because those that vote against don't have to pay it?
I wish that was the case.
Too bad it doesn't work that way.
all right, well, and I don't know if that was,
Already.
okay, I'm not gonna say anything, because I was gonna say 25 million would increase that, but anyway. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. I'm gonna take this one at a time, all right? Moved and seconded that we certify the 2022 Cache County general election, and then Gina made a motion to correct the amount on the Proposition 1. Can I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded that we also approve the change of the amount on page 2 of Proposition 1. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm voting present, and I'll explain in a minute why.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, and present?
Present.
Okay, Gina?
I think that our elections officers did a fantastic job, so this is nothing on them. I'm voting present because I object to the Lieutenant Governor's office not letting us, as members of this body, see the record of votes cast. I was not able to see that in its entirety. And so for that reason, this is a protest statement by voting present, because I believe that we should be allowed to see that record in order to make these decisions.
Thank you.
Guys, thanks for all you did and your patience with me and helping me look at stuff. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And if there's nothing else, we will adjourn this canvassing meeting. Thank you, everyone.